Hello, everyone. This is Bob Tremore, and I'm honored today to be joined by Dr. David Miller, author of Sweating Together. Hello, David.
Good evening. Honored to be on with you today, Bob.
Thank you all. It's been a pleasure. We've known each other for a couple years, and we've communicated back and forth. In fact, I was probably one of your very first pre-orders on the book on Amazon, which got delayed a few times, probably as many
Blame
times
it
as the
on the
rower.
company, not me. Things kept changing, and as we'll discuss tonight, continue to evolve.
Well, hopefully we can touch back on the book, but this brought a perfect opportunity for the two of us to get together, and hopefully we'll get together again in the future. The Amazon news today.
Yep.
What? Well, let me briefly go over it. We have a graphic on the screen right now. Peloton, it's debatable, right? Partnered with and/or is a vendor of Amazon. They are now selling on Amazon. Recently, Barry put the German bike on the German eBay store. And now in America, in the US at least, we have Amazon. Again, the Gen 1 bike, not the Bike Plus, not the Tread, but the Gen 1 bike guide and all the dumbbells and various things like that are on the Amazon store. I know you have some thoughts. Real quickly before I get them, let me put up a couple tweets that we probably hit within minutes of each other. I put out a tweet about showroom closures, and that is once I saw the announcement from Barry that they're going to sell on Amazon, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Just not too long ago, he said we're going to close a bunch of retail stores. And my tweet is essentially, okay, Barry's offsetting some of the retail store closure with putting some stuff on Amazon. And you not right around the same time said one last trick to distract from tomorrow's earnings. This is a bad sign for Peloton on many, many levels. We're on. It looks like we're on opposite sides, or at least a little bit differential on this. What are you thinking?
I think we agree with the direction. We just differ in maybe the strategy or the immediate approach. I think a lot of the news that's come out, the closing of stores, laying people off, shutting down a Plano back office, raising prices, is meant to satiate Wall Street. We have a CEO who's really a CFO. And admittedly, the Wall Street market matters, but looking at the growth of the company, looking at the way people make purchases, physical retail has always mattered, and they absolutely overbuilt. In my region, for example, we're up to 5 stores. We probably only need 1, maybe 2. So I'd agree with that, but it looks like Barry's a digital first, digital only approach. That's Barry Plus, I think some people call it. So anything physical, including hardware, is bad. I think putting on Amazon, as you referenced, is not really a partnership. Anybody can list on Amazon. I can put my stickers on Amazon. They're really cool, by the way, if people want to see them. It also, as I mentioned, diminishes the experience, the ownership of really buying into the brand from the time you go in retail for a lot of buyers to the delivery itself. I don't remember when Amazon's ever come in my home. I think Peloton's the only company that really I wanted in my home that I can remember. I think it also diminishes the hardware itself, that you type in spin bike and you see 50 other bikes before you see a Peloton bike, and it just looks like all the others. So I think it's overall a dangerous strategy in tandem with the announcement of shutting down of retail and shutting down of delivery, etc.
I see where you're coming from. On the prestige point, and I put out a video not too long ago on this, I would disagree. I would agree that it is lowering the prestige of Peloton. However, I think Peloton's financial state is so low, it can't get any lower. And I think that's visible beyond investors at this point. I see on Instagram and I see on Twitter, non-financial people, just people every day like, gosh, is Peloton still going to be around a year from now? Should I buy the rower, or should I do this, or should I do that? It is common knowledge the state of affairs they're in. I argue that the prestige or the cachet of the Peloton name, akin to kind of Apple, has already evaporated for the most part. And that Barry has to get this stuff out into the hands of people so that they become loyal subscribers. Now, going on to your other point, the XPO aspect, XPO has been a nightmare. It was a nightmare for John. It's a nightmare for Barry. It's going to be a nightmare for whoever comes after Barry. Well, actually, it's not, because Barry put a stop to all in-house production and all in-house logistics. And he said, we're going to have third parties do it. Now, obviously, the one Peloton sales are still going to go XPO or JB Hunt, but the Amazon stuff, it appears, is going to be handled by Amazon's carrier contracts. And that can only be a good thing, right? At least on that part.
Maybe. I mean, they did leave me my neighbor's package yesterday. That's the
Oh,
truth.
well,
And I walked it over gladly, but it was only this big. And I got a big Chewy package today, but
yeah.
that was,
I mean,
again,
we're
on the
talking big
outside.
bikes. It'd be hard to
But
mishandle that. But
I agree with you. There was such over expansion. I think if they would have kept it to, let's say, the core 10 markets in the US, right, where you had kind of
yeah,
Peloton branded. But I do think there's other options rather than the full scale Amazon approach. For example, Best Buy has been on my radar for a while as someone who's got showrooms, who's got physical space, who can handle a sale because people like to talk to somebody when they're buying an expensive product. And then also, Best Buy happens to be long history of delivering items, both technical that need electronic components and connectivity, but also big things like washing machines and refrigerators. So to me, it's just the bluntness of this concept of just we're digital. That's it. And again, the bike is a better bike than most others. And by putting it on Amazon as opposed to somewhere like Best
yeah,
Buy or some other fitness resellers, or even maybe selling them in mass a different way, right? It's not a nuanced strategy. For example, you could partner with someone like an Airbnb or a Verbo and sell buckets of bikes to all of these different people. Hotels have been talked about forever, right?
yeah,
Gyms
forever.
themselves, they're just, again, it seems a very blunt Wall Street approach that we just want to show you we're cutting dramatic costs, we're
Yeah.
outsourcing. And the challenge is it doesn't add to the experience, not even the prestige, the experience. And it hurts the values we talked about of the brand.
And I'm with you. And anyone who's followed me on Twitter, I I've been a big commercial and or government and or big education proponent of that
Mhm.
sales channel or those sales channels for a long time, and I've always felt Peloton is underdelivered. What I've concluded is that Peloton is not completely inept at commercial sales. That's what I've largely concluded. It's hard to be so inept that I'm not seeing any of these come across the desk. What I've concluded is the commercial sales cycle is so glacier slow. It just takes time. Maybe it's a combination of both. I've never been shocked when I've said Peloton is not inept. I mean, sadly, it happens, and it has
That
happened. But let me ask you: do you agree or disagree with the retail store closures at this stage in time?
I think, like I mentioned, in certain markets, you can have them. I'm guessing the top 15 metros in the US, a couple in Canada, in Europe, because they're not only are they sales points, they're community gathering points.
Yes.
They're an opportunity that the company has not leveraged. They've started opening up on maybe Fridays for group rides. I also think, to our earlier point of where is the bike, I think if they put some of their more of their bikes, the Gen 1 in, and opened it up to members when they're traveling, when they're out and about, almost like a mini kind of one room, one product health club, I think they'd see more value and there'd still be a reason to keep them around a little more. You can't get into the New York studio or the London studio, which
Yeah.
is really ironic because the whole idea, the reason Foley started the company was because he had to wait to buy passes for his wife as if he were buying concert tickets.
Yeah.
And now Peloton studios have become just like that,
So
where you
yeah.
can't even get in.
So I want to corner you on this because I still don't understand
Yes.
your viewpoint entirely. You're for closing retail stores and while maintaining flagship locations. Totally in agreement with
Yep.
that. I think it's
Mhm.
in fact I think they should keep some flagship vans in New York just to drive them around every so often. But if commercial sales are either inept or glacier slow, we're not seeing it. Retail store closes. No one is seemingly buying these mountains of Gen bikes that exist in warehouses across the planet. What is your answer if it's not something like Amazon? What is your
Again,
proposal?
Amazon is too mass market. There's no differentiation unless you're going to pay, unless you're going to pay
What
to
is
get.
your proposal?
My proposal, like I said, massive corporate sales, and you're giving it. I don't think that they're inept. I think, as Barry once mentioned, he doesn't even think about Precor. I think he literally said that on maybe his first earnings call.
It
He hasn't even
very
time, and
essentially.
that is their commercial arm. Secondly, I think you're giving them way too much credit. I think they are so focused on consumer because that's where their brand was made. Things like teeny tiny microphones,
Yeah.
right? If you took that effort on you don't watch Instagram, but they've got a big movement of interviews. if they took their focus, you've talked about marketing, away from consumer marketing, all the spend, and put it more towards commercial sales, I think they would move the product. And again, group sales, if you look at their cohorts, they've been around long enough. They have longer served cohorts that are pretty much diehards that I think if you made them a special offer on a second bike or a second home for a family member, for a friend, and again, it's a financial issue. Like we've talked about, we need to move the bikes, even if you lose on the cost of the
Yeah.
bike, you're going to save on the warehousing, which at this point is very expensive. They just need to move products. So I think they haven't been creative. And I think Amazon is just so blunt, like eBay. Like
Yeah.
just throw it up, just
And,
like
and
anybody.
and we don't know what it is. At least I don't know what it is. Maybe some professional Amazon sellers do. I don't know what the vig is on Amazon taking a percentage of the sales. It's going to be something, but again, and I've spoken of this before. Those bikes sitting in warehouses collecting dust are not zero. They are liabilities. They need to be get out there and just start generating revenue. So I don't care what Amazon layer of the cake they take, as long as they get bikes out the door. And I mean, I'm excited for, something as small as the wedding wish list. Now Pelotons can be added to the wedding wish list and stuff like that. But let me ask you this: if Foley was still in charge, and you've spoken with Foley, you have a relationship of sorts. You've never told me what exactly it is, but you have had at least a relationship with Foley. Would he have ever done this?
I'm not going to try and pretend to get in the mind of John Foley. I've met him, as you said, a couple of times. I've interviewed him. I do believe he would have gotten here. There's no question, in the sense, because he did have that vision of democratizing high-end boutique fitness, which they've done. That's what's still amazing, and why the company is salvageable. There's still nothing of this scale that has got people doing great things. And that's why I recognized it 6 years ago, that they had the ability to get people to do things they didn't really historically want to do and keep doing it consistently, positively. So I think a distribution channel like Amazon, but it would have been very late to the party. It not where we are. It wouldn't have been forced in a corner, which again, I think this is part of the announcements to try and quell Wall Street. I mean, it's already gone up 20% today.
Yeah.
Now we'll see where it goes tomorrow after people have had time to digest it, take some earnings and walk away. But I think Foley would have been okay because it gets closer to the goal. The challenge is every member going to stick around? I think it's important to get lock-in and get people on bikes, but I think there are, as I mentioned, more effective ways to move bikes quickly than they've shown they're capable of doing. They've had well over a year and a half, the new CEO's had since February, and I don't think we're going to see tomorrow much movement in terms of sales or new subscribers.
Yeah. And there's an expiration date as we record this. ER is in about 15 hours. It's before market open tomorrow. So there's a short expiration date, but we can talk about it. What I go back to is before the tragically bad ER, where Peloton literally dropped 30% in a day. Before that ER, John had periodically popped his head out on social media. Retweet this, or this is cool, or we have a new health and advisory wellness council, or something of that nature. But he essentially was not very sociable on the social media. Before the tragically bad ER, John Foley, a week and a half leading up to it, was all over Twitter, retweeting people, interacting with people, doing things he never normally does. And then ER landed, and it was a living nightmare for investors. Barry, or Barry Plus, as I like to call him, is putting out a landslide of news, information, data points, what have you. I want to believe it's just Barry Plus. Finally, he's been there, 6 months, give or take. He's hitting his stride. He's got his people in, all the programs and projects and all the timelines and deadlines are coming together. He can finally start pushing this out. Whether or not an ER was tomorrow or not, this stuff would have come out. But I do have, in the back corner of my brain, I'm like, Foley did this. Is tomorrow going to be tragically bad?
If I've been on it for a couple of weeks because of the announcements. It's always, to me, a bad sign. It doesn't matter who you are. As a family member who's a longtime investor used to always tell me, the truth will out. You can make all the announcements you want, but when the numbers hit, the numbers hit. And so I think that was my initial inclination a few weeks ago or a week ago with the layoffs, the price changes back to more traditional pricing. But I think your hunch is right. I don't know, again, if that was Foley's approach, but I think Barry is a CFO by training. We could look back at, that's a digital model CFO, which I think people would question what's going on with those companies and where their models are
It's
today.
reasonable.
Let's not talk fighting the last battle. Maybe did we bring in the wrong general to fight the digital wars, and the digital wars are not what we thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
But I do think you're right. I think this pace of announcement, unless that was my concern. They're all really future looking, 6 months, maybe. I think they even hinted at the Tread Plus, which is
absolutely
almost comical at this point. But that tells you how they, like nothing to see here today, nothing to see here now. And to our core point, we need to see if bikes moved. We need to see inventory. There's a lot of financial engineering that goes on in the world.
Yeah.
It's Wall Street, but we need to see the actual, how many bikes, like you said, are there piles of bikes at warehouses all around the world, or are they actually moving out?
And we'll see, hopefully, how some of this folds out. Tonic Fitness, which is their Taiwan manufacturing arm they bought a long time ago. It goes by Tonic too, but Tonic Fitness is shuttered, has been shuttered for a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Precor, which when they were bought said, oh, we're going to produce some stuff in Charlotte and Woodinville beside their big commercial machines. I don't think that ever panned out. We never heard anything. I doubt it ever panned out that Precor was used for Peloton manufacturing. And then obviously we heard the Peloton Output Park that got shuttered, and I'm assuming is in the negotiation stages of being sold. All of that's done. Precor is going to be sold as well. That leads us to, we got to get these bikes out the door. We got to get consumers' hands. To your point, I see the prestige point. To me, it doesn't. I think it is what it is.
It's experience. It's from the purchase through the delivery. It buys you into the brand, almost like going in an Apple store or something like that. Gets you into it before you've even taken delivery. But your point is correct. They need to clean up the balance sheet.
So do you think the board, who I haven't done a tally, but I haven't seen any board changes. The board, obviously, John Foley is sitting on, he's the executive of the board.
Yeah.
After 6 months of Barry, do you think they're giving any pushback, or are they good?
I don't know if the board is. I think you're right. He's still the chairman, John Foley. I think he's still got super majority voting rights. Some of our real Wall Street, I think people who know better than I do could really tell you how much power still remains. Look, I think they have more time on him. When Foley first stepped down, I actually thought he was playing the surrender tactic, which is where you pretend you surrender, put someone up in charge, let things cool off, and then you come back. That still could be in play. It's only been 6 months.
No.
I mean, you're saying no.
He's not a puppeteer. There's no puppeteer on Barry Plus.
He's just waiting till things cool off, right? And settle down a little bit, and then we can bring him back because he's still the chair. So I do think Barry has some time, but I think it's like we've seen, it's going to be Wall Street deciding really how much leeway. Is there a point, like we've mentioned, where, and lots of people like to talk about it becomes a clear acquisition target? I mean, if you think about this, I think it was 2018 when they did their last private fundraising round. They were a $4 billion valuation at that point.
Yeah.
They went public at 8.
Yeah.
They're at 4 or 5 based on today's announcement of a partnership, which rings of the Echelon partnership a few months back. And so I hope that it does move. I hope that the stock price movement is real, that there actually are good numbers tomorrow, and that people do buy in a simpler, and they find Amazon an easier way to buy a heavy product. But we'll see.
All right, David, I will allow you some leeway to mention Echelon here, but I'm not going to allow you to say SoulCycle in any of these conversations we have. All right?
Oh, we'll have to, because it's important, because it's still about the brand, right? Even to this point, right? And you'll say I backed myself in a corner again, but the brand that you mentioned, I didn't even say it, right? The brand that you mentioned was always about exclusivity, zip codes, locations. Peloton was the opposite.
Yes.
Put it in your house and you are the coolest. So
open community. Welcome all.
I agree. But somehow Apple's done that without being all over Amazon, or at least Amazon being a major, hey, look at us, right? I don't know if there's Apple on Amazon, but they're sure not waving their flag about it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I hope that, we don't end up where it still is just the plaything of the rich, and that, the price goes up to those
That's
who
why
can
we
pay.
have Amazon, David. I'm bringing you back. I'm bringing you back home.
I hope, you know what, let me go order one. Hold on. Let me go open another browser
All
and see
right.
where they leave it.
So before we get far afield, I wanted to get your comments on Amazon. I think I'm happy about the news. You're less than happy, but you understand the need for getting these Gen 1s out of the
No
warehouses.
question.
Though I still
It's
don't
it's
understand your solution, but we'll get there. We'll work through it together as a team. We'll work through it. But so let's round it out. We'll kind of wrap up this broadcast. But I did just want to, because I was more or less introduced to you when I saw that you were showing your book off, or at least
yeah,
at that time the plans for the book, Sweating Together. You want to just tell us just a little bit about it?
sure. I mentioned a bit earlier, but what happened was the Peloton bike, physical bike, came into my life in my home. My wife purchased it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I'd never done boutique fitness or spinning or indoor cycling, whatever it's got to legally be called. And I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. And then eventually I did ride it because I got sick of the treadmill, and it was fun and hard. I mean, I really was working out. And then in February 2017, my wife said, look at the Facebook page. And I'd studied Facebook since before it had an IPO. I used to study student founders.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen people so happy, or as they were around the Peloton bike and the Peloton community. And this goes back again over 5 years. And I thought, wow, the world is kind of nasty. There was an election going on. It just happened in the US. And I thought, this is such a happy place. What's going on? What's this company? And I realized pretty quickly it was different. It was getting people fit. It was getting people connected. It was getting them active and engaged in a positive way. And it was growing like crazy. And it had streaming, and it had technology, and it had gamification, it had all these really interesting
Yeah.
things that, as an innovation researcher, were all kind of packaged up. Social media with the instructors and all the members sharing with each other. And that's when I started researching 5.5 years ago. As we mentioned, they raised money, they did an IPO, and now they're in a very different place. And so it is important to talk about this news, because the model that got them there, which was heavy showrooms, and that was important, may not be the core model anymore. But I think for any corporation, for any brand, if you cut off your kind of DNA that grew you,
Yeah.
you're going to lose a lot of your customers, and it's going to lose direction for the employees who don't really understand what you're about and why you're there. And that's really my
Yeah.
concern. It's kind of a digital axe, I might say. The whole thing is digital. And
Yeah.
that's how the book started. And like you mentioned, I got to talk to a lot of the people, including John Foley and some of the instructors, and spent a lot of time up in the New York studios, which were great. And I'm hoping to get back in if I can get a
Yeah.
ticket.
I know I won't, but I think I'm on. If they have a blacklist, I'm probably on that
I,
blacklist. But
it, the server wouldn't come up today when I was looking for tickets. So I don't know if they saw my tweet. I'm not if you sent it over,
yeah.
but yeah, no, and that really is, it's a great, like, I really mean it. There's still no company like it, for
No,
all the
zero.
grief that they've
No.
been through the last 2 years, year and a half. There's still nothing like it, and that's why it's, to me, important to save it, but then figure out how to get back on track so it
Absolutely.
can keep impacting people in such a positive way.
And that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. Through the good times and the bad, both of us believe in one thing, and we believe in the mission that Peloton has set for itself. And we think it's a good mission. And the mission is making America and the population healthier and fitter. And I'm fully on board. And I've said many times, I would love for Peloton to do it because it happens to be the company I follow. But if Nordic Trek or Echelon or Tonal or any of these companies can make strides, further strides than what Peloton has done, I'm all for it. I really am. But
And
Peloton is bar none.
that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted to know, could more companies and organizations do this? And I also learned, because of Peloton, well-being is, it's not just fitness, it's your community, it's
Mm,
socially being engaged
yeah,
and being out and being active. I mean, I tell a story in the book where DJ John Michael talked about going to the zoo, and I thought, I haven't been to a museum in ages, because I'd seen his social media. And then when I went to New York, I went to the Whitney Museum and saw Warhol and ran into Cindy Crawford. And it was like, all because of DJ John
yeah,
Michael. I'm more engaged with the world. So again, to your point, it's such a good mission of helping people get healthy and well and involved in positive communities, that I hope they can do it. I hope other organizations figure it out. And I hope that, it just gives more people an opportunity to live well.
That's fantastic, and there's lots more. We there you include not only historical things, interviews. You also make some future predictions and or things where it's directions where it's going to go, and hopefully, in further broadcasts, maybe we'll get to some of those and kind of explore them a little
That's
bit more.
absolutely. We'll fix it up and get it going forward again.
David, I appreciate your time. And
Thank
what's
you,
your
Bob.
handle on Peloton?
On Peloton, I'm Chicago born, and I
And
will be on pre-earnings tomorrow. And on social media, it's David J. Miller, PhD.
appreciate it. All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you later.